Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, where we're about to embark on stage 2 of upgrades for the differential and rear axle assembly on the twin turbo Nissan 370 GT. While I'm at it, I'm going to be trying to fit a finned Nizmo rear differential cover. As you can see, this car has rear wheel steer. As this is the premium model in the Nissan 370 GT range, I'm told that it is impossible to fit a finned diff cover to this vehicle due to the rear steering rack being in the way, which I can certainly understand why people would say that. But in my opinion, with a bit of modification, I can fit a Nizmo finned diff cover to it. Definitely can't fit a Z1 cover due to the Z1 cover being a high capacity unit as well, which encroaches on the space where the rear rack is. However, the Nizmo fin cover is basically a stock cover just with fins added to it. So basically what I'm going to do is work out exactly where the interference is and remove sections of the fins to enable me to fit the Nizmo cover to the all-wheel steer 370 GT / G37 370Z, whatever. So what I'm about to do while I actually have the thing still in situ is I'm looking at how much clearance there is around the rear steer setup for the fins for the Nizmo cover. So this is the Nizmo cover here, folks. I've made a lot of measurements on the cover, and as far as I can tell, it is basically the same casting as the standard cover. They've just added the fins to it. I have cleaned the casting up quite a bit because it was pretty daggy, had some really sharp bits of casting flash on it, and yeah, it was the sort of thing that would cut you as soon as you'd look at it. So you can see here I've got a bit of a Sharpie line across there where I've been making some marks. And what I have here is a template that I've made off the original cover, which shows me the clearance that I have with a few reference points. We'll go and shove this back on the stock cover in position and I'll show you what we have. So up here with the stock cover, what I'm using as a datum is the sump plug position there. So I'm coming directly over the center of the sump plug. I've got this piece of cardboard here. Now I've got the cardboard extending to the rear mounting face of the cover and also going up and giving me, you know, a good 7mm clearance between the back of the steering rack and then kind of coming down. So as long as I don't go over that, oh, I wish I had 3 hands sometimes, folks. And I'll also put a mark where the rack finishes, but basically it's really, you know, there's really not that much that needs to be removed. With the template sitting in this position, if this template was the diff cover, then it would be clear. So now with the template sitting here, you can see I'm using the mounting face of the diff cover in this position here, which is the same as up there, and that's where the cover's basically sitting. So from the side, you can see that it's really only this section here that that needs to come off. So basically what I think we're going to end up with is a fin that comes down something like this. Alright, so this will be removed right across the back, if you can see there, and that follows the line. Probably not even that much, probably more of a, there, that second line, something like that, and I reckon I should be clear. So I'll just remove this material some way. I'll either remove the bulk of it with a grinder or maybe put it in my my mill drill and sort of mill it off, or we'll see, whatever's going to sort of work out pretty well. But as you can see, I don't feel there is really that much that needs to be removed to enable it to fit. So I'll make a few more measurements, maybe tune in the template a bit more, and then we'll have a look at a bit of fin material removal. Diff cover's mounted up in the drill press, folks, ready to go. I've just got a 10mm milling cutter in my drill press here, and I'll be able to take this off, no worries with this. This is just a modified drill press, folks. There's a couple of videos on my YouTube channel about how I went about modifying this drill press. It's not a mill, it does do a little bit of light milling like this, but it's something that anyone can do in their home workshop. So don't think, oh, that's easy if you've got a mill. This is just a drill press, not a mill. Let's knock this flat. So clearance wise, folks, I think that will pretty much do me. So as you can see, we took a bit of the fin off, but there is still, you know, plenty of fins still on there for the cooling, and I think that should give me clearance. If not, it'll only be a very, very small amount that needs to be removed now. I'll clean this up a bit where the fins meet the diff cover. I'll clean all that up and I'll sort of smooth this off a bit more and get rid of all these sharp edges on the corners. But I think that should be pretty much. I took a little bit more off these two fins here. There's a little boss. There's a bit of a boss that sticks out in one spot on the rear steering rack in that position, and I'm hoping that's going to give me the clearance that I need there. But other than that, I don't think there's anywhere else that needs to be clearance, from my measurements anyway. Not too big of a deal, folks. You could quite easily do this with a handheld, you know, 4-inch grinder, or, you know, just with a flat wheel on it or anything like that. I just use my modified drill press because I have it there. But, you know, like I say, it's not out of the realm of just doing it with hand tools. I do have a temperature sender in my other cover, and the diff runs really hot in these things, particularly just on highway cruising. The diff gets really, really hot. And if you are punishing the diff just in, you know, pretty full-on driving, it does also get quite hot. And anything that you can do to keep your diff cool, particularly with a viscous center, and I am trying to retain my viscous limited slip diff for the moment at least, while it's able to handle what I'm dishing out to it. So far it hasn't let me down at all. It seems to be working really well, and it really is a pleasure to drive in a street car with a viscous limited slip diff. But heat is the enemy of the viscous coupling, folks. It gets hot, the fluid thins out, and then you start to go single wheel. If you can keep this thing cool, you know, it's certainly going to help. And I'm possibly going to create a bit of venting and some channels and stuff to maybe try and feed air over these fins to hopefully give it a little bit more. So I'll clean this up and we'll have another look. Right folks, that's all cleaned up now. It's all sort of smoothed off, there's no burrs. I've been up all these edges and everything just to make it nice and smooth. I was looking at how I'm going to redo the temperature sensor on this diff cover, and I thought, oh, that's just going to be a pain in the arse. I could take one of these fins off and, you know, to get a spot, you know, because obviously you want to be down in the lower part where all the fluid is to get a proper reading. I thought, no, that's going to give me the shits having to do that. I don't want to take any more fins off. I've already removed a bit of fin material. So this is my solution. I've just bought a replacement drain plug for the diff. This is just an M18 by 1.5 is the size and the thread of these bolts. And the original bolt, if you recall, just looking back at the standard diff housing, it uses like an Allen key or a hex drive to remove the bolt, so it's got like a recessed head. There's no way you can do what I've done here to that bolt because you remove the way of actually removing it. So you need to use a standard bolt for this. So what I've done, I've got a couple of replacement bolts and I've drilled the center of this out and then tapped it to 1/8 NPT, which is the thread for the temperature sensors that I'm using. And I've just opened up the back of the bolt a bit around where the sensor protrudes through, just to allow as much oil around the sensor as I can, just to help it get you know, quick and sort of accurate readings. So this just screws into the back of the diff cover as per the standard, like so. And if I use a long socket like I've got here, the temperature sensor doesn't have to be removed to remove the drain plug. Basically all I have to do is just unclip the wire from the top, which clips on and off really easily, and a long socket will clear the sensor. So you just unclip the sensor and it stays in there, and then you just you know, just use your normal socket instead of having to use a hex key socket. I've also bought one for the fill plug on the side here. No particular reason for using one on the fill side, other than the fact that it just means I only have to use the one tool. Obviously if you're going to be working under there, it's ideal to be using the same tool on the drain and fill rather than leave this as the standard hex key type. So just thought I'd show you that, folks. That's how I'm mounting my temperature sensor. A really easy way to do it. You can buy a replacement M18 by 1.5 bolts on eBay. They're cheap as chips. I'll leave a link in the description if I remember. If I don't, let me know in the comments and I'll put it in there, because I do forget shit all the time because I am getting really, really old. So anyway, let's start pulling shit apart. I've got it, folks. I've got the diff out of the car. I've spared you from all the nuts and bolts removal and exhaust and everything like that, axles. Just because, well, I forgot to film it. But anyway, diff's out of the car. There's the new cover that's about to go on. Hopefully it's going to fit. But we really don't know that yet. So what we need to do is prep this, drain the oil, and put the cover on dry. And hopefully we only have to do it once, because there's nothing worse than going in dry twice. So let's drain this sucker and get the cover off. Right. That's probably going to be worse. Alright, that's going to fuck me ratchet. Let's see how you like this. Ha! Ha! Who's laughing now? Oh no. Sorry folks. I'm exposing me nuts. That wasn't meant to happen. Jesus Christ. Now I've got oil all over me nuts. Bugger me, folks. Ever had one of those days? Well, today was that for me. This is just typical of everything that's happened to me today. It's kind of sucks so far, but it's going to get better. Oh, geez, I didn't spot that right away. Why didn't one of you say something? Jesus. There's a lot of oil in there. Maybe I should edit this out so I don't seem like such a klutz. That is apparently the YouTube way, but that's not how we do it here in the Aussie shed, folks. You get to see everything, warts and all. Well, I guess at least it's a rust preventative. It's gonna friggin' stink though, that's the worst thing. Every time I touch something in here, I'm going to stink like gear oil. Righto, that's clean enough. Jesus Christ, it stinks though. Not happy about that. Rightio, let's get the rest of this sucker apart. So this is the temperature sensor that I put in here, folks. You can sort of see already from how I was saying that it won't interfere with the sump plug setup that I have, or the drain plug setup that I'm doing on the fin diff cover. So that's how it'll go there, folks. That's our drain plug. Like I say, that just threads into there, and your socket still fits over the top of it without interfering it or touching it anywhere. So you just basically unclip the top and you can sort of drain your diff without having to worry about the sensor. And it comes through obviously a fair bit more when it's screwed all the way in, but you can see there's like clearance around it so oil can move around the sensor. Anyway, that's how that works. So we'll get this cover off, eh? So you can see that oil actually that came out of this, folks, is nice and clean. That's due to the fact that I've had this cover off a few years ago now, but the car doesn't do a lot of miles, you know, so it's probably only done 2,000 or 3,000 Ks or whatever since that was done, and the cover was off so I could weld the sensor bung on it. It's probably not that easy to get off. It's stuck on with Permatex Ultra Grey, folks, which is a really fantastic sealer for this sort of thing. You know, for doing engine sumps and all sorts of things. But it really sticks stuff, which is what you want because it does a fantastic job of sealing things. Ultra Black's pretty good too. They also do a red one. I don't know what it's called, but I've actually had a few instances where that actually leaked. Whereas the Ultra Grey, I've never had a failure with it. It's always been really good. But like I say, it is really hard to get stuff apart once you've sealed it up with Ultra Grey. But I'm sure we can deal with it. It's just slow and steady, folks, this sort of stuff, so that you don't damage anything. Ideally, you've just got to try and get something started in behind it so you can slip a blade in there and start cutting the Celastic. But a lot of the time, like the cover's pretty much super tight to the housing, you know, so it's very hard to find somewhere where you can start slipping a tool in. Alright, so we'll now mount the new cover on dry. I just cleaned up all the bolts on the wire wheel to get all this elastic off them. So they're all ready to go, but we'll just do a dry run with the new cover so we can check all of our clearances. Alright, now we just got to get it back up on the car, which is a little bit of a problem. Because that's a gearbox jack over there, but you can see it's got the transmission out of the skyline on it. And that's just a whole nother story, folks, that you'll have to keep on watching the Aussie Shed to find out why the hell the transmission's out of it. Anyway, I'm going to have to get that off, get the diff on, so I can get it up in position. So bear with me, folks. I'll get that done. And there we are, folks. That's our differential back in position. It's still sitting on the gearbox jack, as you can see there, but it is fully mounted in position. So yes, it does actually fit. It is clear. It isn't actually touching anywhere, but there's probably about maybe 4 or 5 mil clearance. I'll just grab another light. Alright, so you can see we do have clearance up through here, but it's probably a little bit tighter than I want. It's probably look like one fin on the very end there was probably only a couple of mil, and some of this is sort of 2 to 3 mil-ish, maybe a bit more. So I think I need a little bit more clearance than that, so I'll whip it back out and remark it, and I'll probably just do this with a sanding drum, just sort of because the shape of the steering rack, it's sort of round where it's touching it, and I can more effectively sort of scallop it out with just a sanding drum, go across that section, and that'll sort of get it then. But as you can see, that's all there is to it, really. It is going to fit. So it is possible to fit the Fin Nizmo cover. It just requires a little bit of work. And it looks pretty bloody nice, I think. Don't mind it at all. I just hope it's sort of functional. Anyway, we'll get it down and get it back out on the bench and maybe scallop a bit more out of it. Right folks, I'm pretty happy with it now. I'll just give you a bit of another look. You can see the clearance that we have there now. Sort of hard to get a real accurate sort of gauge on the camera, I reckon. But there's a good, oh mate, I reckon there's close to 10mm clearance all the way around it. At least 8mm at the closest points. You can see we've managed to retain most of the fins. We did have a little bit of a chop at it up that top area there originally on the drill press, and just then with a little bit more, but overall it was a very small percentage of the amount of fin that's on there. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Not only does it look pretty cool, I think it'll actually, well, I'm hoping that it'll actually do something. I'll be able to tell, you know, by having a temperature sender and a gauge running off this. I've had this set up for a few years now, so I'm well aware of how the diff reacts temperature-wise to different driving conditions. So I'll be able to see whether this was a worthwhile thing to do or just a bit of wank factor, really. As I say, I still am running the original viscous limited slip diff in this. It's got good manners to drive on, and when it's functioning, it functions absolutely fine. But the issue will be if I get it too hot and then start asking a bit much of it, it's probably going to let me down when I probably least want it to. But for now, it's all sort of part of the development process of the car. I honestly can't really afford to spend money on putting another center in it at the moment. I probably will end up putting a wave track in it, just because it is mainly a street car. So anyway folks, I'll get this out of here and get the whole thing back on the bench, and we'll seal her up and get it ready to put back in. Nearly there folks, the cover is properly bonded on. I couldn't help myself. I cleaned up the casing and put a few coats of paint over it just to tidy it up because it was starting to look pretty crap. The reason I haven't done these drive axles is they're a bit awkward to get to sort of clean up properly, and what I'll do is I'll clean those when I pull the diff apart. Eventually I probably will, as I mentioned, probably put another center in it. But yeah, they're a bit of a pain in the bum to get to, so I'll clean those up when I've got them out, you know. Anyway, it's starting to look the part. We'll just let that dry and we'll slip it in. There it is folks, all done and dusted. The cover is now finished. It's all topped up with fluids and ready to go. So you can see the obvious sensor location and everything there now. As I mentioned earlier, 19mm socket folks, straight on over the top. You know, sump plug comes out with the sensor in it. You never have to take the sensor out of the plug again, and then it just straight back on. I think I actually prefer this over the welded bung on the side. Certainly a lot easier to do for anyone who doesn't have the capacity to weld aluminium. Drilling and tapping out the drain plug is just a much easier solution. So there it is, folks. I hope you like the Finn Nizmo differential cover installation on the 4-wheel steer Nissan 370 GT. Just goes to show, folks, that if you set your mind to doing something, pretty much anything's possible. The other associated video with this is the Spl Hub Bushing Install. I don't know whether it will come out before or after this, but if you're interested in the Nissan 370 GT, probably something you could take a look at. All the SPL stuff's already done. I'm just not sure when I'm going to be able to get around to doing the editing, whether it'll be before or after this, like I say. But the main focus is pressing in all the hub bushings, because obviously fitting the arms is no sort of big deal. I do in the video, I think, fit the traction arm, but most of it revolves around how to press out all the old hub bushings and how to press in all the new ones and everything. Alrighty. So anyway, folks, thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, remember to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. If you like my stuff in general, subscribe to my channel. And as always, folks, I'll see yous on the next one. Cheers.